Hi, I'm Scott Wrighton. I serve as Decatur City Manager, and those of you who watch these videos regularly know that every week we provide a short video about a few things that are going on at your city government. So today I'd like to talk about two things. The first has to do with a very large project that we've talked a lot about, but it hasn't actually gotten completely off the ground, and that's the Brush College Ferries Parkway separation project way over on the east side of the city. And I also want to talk a little bit about some of the large buildings that are either derelict or need to come down and have been a problem getting them down for lots of different reasons over the years, to provide a little bit of maybe historical background and context for some of that, since many of us as Decatur citizens drive by these buildings sometimes every day. So the Brush College Ferries Parkway separation project is a project that the city and the state of Illinois have really been engaged in planning and designing for nearly 10 years. And because of that long timeline, its cost has grown and its design scope has changed as well. But the short summary of the project is that Brush College and Ferries Park will be grade separated, meaning that Brush College, the north and southbound traffic, will go over the east and westbound traffic on Ferries Parkway, and then there'll be ramps and loops around so that those who want to turn on, from one to the other can do so, like other grade separated intersections. That particular intersection is challenging, however, because on the west side is a railroad track and on the northeast corner is a cemetery, and so we have very little room to put in some of these ramps and curves that would make the intersection work as it's supposed to do. And that and the fact that we're dealing with two Class 1 railroads has made the project not only complicated but also very expensive. So last spring, early in 2022, the city and the state of Illinois took this project, fully designed, to bid. Unfortunately, the bids at that time came in $16.5 million over the state's engineering estimate for that. And so the project was not awarded because that was too much money. And we began a process of trying to find additional funds to fill that gap without having to ask local taxpayers to pay for that. We've had some limited success so far through the federal government, which has agreed to give an additional $2 million earmark for the project. That's not enough to take care of that $16.5 million gap. And we have, as I stand here today, we have 3 separate grants pending with federal and state agencies that any one of them could provide enough to fill the rest of that gap. So I'm cautiously optimistic that by early in 2023 we'll have some information about those grants. In the meantime, we have proceeded to demolish and clear buildings that have to come out in the southeast corner of that intersection. And in fact, at the last city council meeting, the mayor and city council acted to relocate a sanitary sewer. So we're continuing to prepare the site and to do things, pieces of it that we can do separately so as to bring that cost down. And it's also our hope that in early 2023 that there'll be less instability in the construction bidding arena, and so that we can get better prices. Stay tuned to these videos as well as the other outreach and information provided by our communications coordinator as more of it becomes available about this very important project, which will help economic development through providing additional transportation infrastructure on the city's east side. So the second thing I wanted to talk a little bit about had to do with old buildings that are probably past their useful life, some of them even derelict, some of them maybe falling in and not being safe, and somebody needs to take care of them, demolish them in most cases, or find a repurposing for them. And all too often in the city of Decatur, there's not someone who is willing to take over responsibility for buildings like this. This has been in the news lately, having to do with old school buildings. But I want to say that our ongoing partnership with DPS 61 has been fruitful in more recent years. Yes, decades ago, the school district gave property to folks just to get it off of their balance sheet. But here in more recent years, the school district has really been responsible and has stepped up to demolish the old Southeast Elementary School, to demolish the old Johns Hill Elementary School, to demolish the old Oak Grove Elementary School, to find a responsible tenant for the Adlai Stevenson Elementary School on the north side of the city. And they're working closely with the city of Decatur in a redevelopment project that will be resulting in a repurposing of the old Garfield School, which is at the corner of Oakland and West Grand Street. So we're very pleased to be working with them. And even though the Board of Education pulled it off their agenda on Tuesday night for a technicality, it's going to be back for them to review and hopefully approve here in the very near future, a cooperative agreement between the city and the school district to remove the old Woodrow Wilson School over on the west side, just west of Oakland on the north side of Sunset Street. That has been an eyesore for many, many years. The owner of that property is derelict, lives in New York City, and doesn't want to do anything with the property, and eventually he just stopped paying the taxes on it, so the city was able to acquire it through the Macon County trustee because of his back taxes, and then work out this cooperative arrangement, shared arrangement with the school district for eventually getting the property down. It takes a very long time. Sometimes it takes years to work through these. Now, to the casual observer, you think, well, why is the city, willing to take down a portion or pay for a portion with the school district of the demolition of the derelict Woodrow Wilson School, and we're still waiting on the owner of the privately owned building there on Martin Luther King, just north of the railroad tracks, north of El Dorado, the old Walrus manufacturing building? And the answer is because the owner of the Woodrow Wilson School is completely walked away from the property, allowed it to go for back taxes, and that's not the case with Walrus. Every time we're dealing with one of these old, abandoned, or poorly maintained commercial or industrial buildings, we want to do everything we can to make sure that the taxpayers don't have to pay the burden, have to pay the cost of neglect, years of neglect by some other owner who simply didn't step up and take care of their property. And so we're instead pursuing a different strategy with the Walrus building to make sure that that private property owner takes responsibility for their building, and really it's their lack of maintenance that caused it to collapse in the first place. And some of you may recall that because for a couple of weeks we had North Martin Luther King Drive blocked. I want you to know that the city of Decatur is doing everything it can to make sure that these properties aren't just dumped on us, but every once in a while we have no choice but to take the responsibility to tear them down in the interest of improving the neighborhood and of keeping them safe from dangerous buildings. There's not enough time in this video to talk about all those different buildings, but it provides a little bit of background and why one property does get treated differently than another one, because there's so many different issues about its ownership, about what its status is for paying of taxes, whether or not the owner is available, and so forth. So if you have any specific questions about some of those properties, you can feel free to send me an email here at city offices. Thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to giving you some more information next week.